This feature is powered by Digicel. Digicel, better together.
Hey! We must show more love for the things we own, for their future is our concern.
Soca music, take me back to my island. Soca music.
Whether you're singing your national anthem with pride or connecting with other types of music,
If I broke down my business,
or attending a live event. Music helps us to find out exactly who we are, to explore our identity. Music also allows us to establish a unique cultural identity using the sounds of the distinctive instruments, genres, and rhythms that make the unofficial anthems that we know and love, especially the ones that we sing along to. We can't imagine a world without the genres like calypso, zouk, reggae, soca, or imagine a world without instruments like the pan or the ukulele. Madness. Music has become our favorite pastime, distraction, hobby, art form, and in some cases, a form of therapy. It's extremely important in shaping our cultural identity.
islands in the sun, islands in the fun.
Yeah, we always talking about what it means to identify as Trinbagonian and how we reflect it in our music and in the way that we are, the way that we talk, the way that we behave. But what does cultural identity mean to you?
Well, cultural identity for me is everything. It's at the core of who you are. Once you come into that sense of knowledge of self, it's a consciousness as well. So, I mean, we're from somewhere, right? And that coming from somewhere impacts on you.
We think about how we move through life. How do we eat? How do we pray? How do we love? How do we cry? How do we laugh? How do we overcome hurdles as a nation? And that answer can be very different depending on where you come from. So culture then captures how you live. So therefore cultural identity becomes who you are and how you walk through life.
You really see how impactful and critical that is, because it really shapes your worldview. So cultural identity to me is really central to first of all to the makeup of who I am, how I approach everything from my place in society, or my role as a father, or my role as a son, So it's really central to the entire being.
Without culture, a person has basically no identity. He's a nowherean.
It's really about identity of ourselves and how it represents itself in, I guess, the art that we create, the works that we do, the things that we do to express ourselves as a people.
And that cultural identity is unique to individuals, it's unique to countries, and it definitely creates a unique opportunity for many people, because there's no one like you in the world. There's no nation like this one. So therefore our cultural identity is unique to us, and it's something that we should celebrate all the time. Music is a big part of culture in general, because music is something that is subjective, that comes from humans, right? Identity is a massive part of music, because music is something that is produced and created through emotion, through your brain, your intellectual ability, through the things that make your identity unique, right? So music becomes a very important part of cultural identity just because of the nature of music and the humanness that is involved.
Music is something that touches people emotionally and spiritually and whatnot and makes them feel. And that evocation of feeling is what really does makes people begin to melt.
Our music comes from it comes from out of Africa, right? And so you have this idea of you could go there now and see some of the same things through the jollies and the griots, where songs are praise and shame, right? Songs are the stories of the village or the place, the space, right? And a lot of it is done in Re minor, what we call it, right? The minor key. You have that there. So you have that developing. You have the talk style that manifests itself through the midnight rubber, through the peregrinade, through all these different characters. You have that coming forward. And so it is that power, right? That retention is like you ever see a sprinter, how a sprinter does manage to move so powerful. When they put the foot in them blocks, there's a way they ground themselves and then they propel from there. It's the same thing. The music grounds you and then you could go forward.
You know, all musicians and artists have really put a stamp on how we see ourselves. For better or for worse. In some cases, I think it's for worse. But in many cases, I also think it's for the better. You know, it's a way of, I guess, crystallizing, you know, those same intrinsic things, you know, and putting them across in a way that really just song uplifts the people. Song kind of galvanizes the people into a sense of self, you know.
Well, our culture here, we have influences from Africa, we have influences from India, but somehow we've taken those things and we have mixed it up in a way that gives us a unique identity that's so unique. Even the original Indians and the original Africans they are mind blown when they see what we have done with the roots that came from there. So I think we have something very unique to offer to the world.
Calypso, soca, steel pan, chutney, the classical Indian sound, all those things just come together and created the boiling pot that we live in today.
Love is life and life is love. Blessings from above.
Deep in our Caribbean belly, our musical genres reside. How did they evolve? What were the influences? How do they impact us as a people?
We are calypso, we are of calypso. I mean, we have soca now and stuff, but we are of calypso. And no matter what we do, how we speak, we are of calypso. And that is like in our DNA through different generations. So we could play pop, funk, rap, hip, Jamaican stuff, reggae, anything. That calypso seeps in no matter whatever we do in music.
What is the calypso? How do we identify that calypso? If I was to pinpoint that thing that is calypso.
Again, it's attitude. And then if you want to get theoretical, in musical is a special syncopation that we have.
Calypso is the mother music. Calypso is the mother music. Let's not be nitpicking. Let's not nitpick over that subject. It's all one music, straight from Africa.
Calypso is what tells the story of Trinidad and Tobago, right? Like Sparrow and Kitchener, right? In 200 years, nobody might know who Keith Rowley is or who Camilla Pisat Bissessa, but they're going to know who Sparrow and Kitchener and Sundar Popo and thing is, right? Because, you know, they leave work.
To me, those people's music, it was really about building who we are and very, very objectively looking at us, you know, not in any way that was simply about the entertainment value. but in a way that was about just the poetry.
It is a feeling which comes from deep within. Sometimes a tale of joy or one of suffering.
We can't lose calypso. I am black. I can't get white or green in the morning. You know, it's like you can't get rid of who you are. You could try to hide it, but you can't get rid of it. We try to disguise it in all forms and fashions, but it keeps resurfacing no matter what.
Pan is a part of our cultural identity. We all the trials and the things we went through. But what makes it so unique?
Well, first of all, when you think about the history of Pan and where it has come from, the people who were involved in the making of Pan was not provided with the tools to succeed in life.
Whatever we created was created in spite of, right? We, you know, people didn't care about us, but we steal pan. We just find thing and make something from it, and now it's part of the cultural identity.
Because if you take away my drums, you tell me I can't drum, I can't worship the people who the spirits that I worship. I cannot pray in the way that I'm used to praying. You have taken all of that away from me. You have taken the African drums from me. I come and I create the tambu bamboo. You take that away. And here is the tambu bamboo and the steel pan that came out of that and can succeed and is now all over the world. That is a very unique story that we could tell, right? Where it's born is definitely a big part of our identity. And the steel pan, coming from the history in which it came from, and coming from this country that is a tiny dot on the world map, is what makes our cultural identity unique. It contributes to our cultural identity, and it makes our music different to anything else that's out there in the world.
A man grew up around panyard and thing, and like steel band and thing. It's a very patriarchal thing, right? You know, the elders go say, hey, do that, don't play that, right? I remember Shell Shock playing in a panyard in the early panorama days, back in the 90s or whatever, right? And Shock had Exodus Spaniard jumping, man, and he played one dub tune. And like you see a man come from so, a man come from so, you know, hey, we don't play that here. You know, we did very right. So I think, no, this is why I believe that steel band, only youths playing pan, and only old people in the audience. That tells me it have a disconnect.
And I think part of that comes from the sort of excitement that is involved when you play pan. Something like Panorama. I don't want to sit down and listen to it. I will, and I love it. But I would much rather play.
But I remember there was a time when everybody was so excited to hear what was being played for Panorama.
Yeah.
Like that, and that formed a huge part of our cultural identity. Like that's why Panorama became what it became, right?
Yes.
But what happened to that? Like what happened along the way that we no longer interested in?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think if we look again, you know, understanding history is so important. When you look at the history of Panorama, and you listen to some of the arrangements and the choices of song that arrangers and bands chose, it was always the popular choice. Back then, Kitchener was pop music in Trinidad. Sparrow was pop music in Trinidad.
Musically,
So that became a massive appeal to many people, right? And then eventually you had, you know, situations where there was own compositions, right? So you have people like Bugsy Sharp and Ray Holman is composing their own music and going to Panorama, and that was a new thing as well. You know, that also sort of encouraged people to and attracted people to the competition. Then we had the pan era of pan songs, you call it, and then the pan songs would come out, and you know the arrangers would arrange it, and then it was great for a while, and eventually you realize, okay, but we're not really hearing any pan songs, so you can't really relate it, and then boom, 2016 comes, Despers decide they're going with a soca tune, and that completely changed the realm of Panorama. You know, and that also changed the audience slightly, because now everybody could relate to the music because they know and understand the song, and now can sort of relate and hear, oh, okay, I hear some parts of the music. But I think too that sometimes we have to, as panists, we're thinking, oh no, why, Trinidad and Tobago, people are not listening to it, and we only have the same audience, and we're worried about the generation that's listening to it. And then we think, but we Trinidadians need to appreciate what they have. But my thinking behind that is, we are the entertainers, right? We are the ones who are entertaining Trinidad and Tobago. So I would want to change things, right, so that I can attract your attention.
If the youths, I think, throw their own pan festival, play what they want to play, bring their friends, bring wherever. All they had to, is good music, so all they had to do is hear it.
We're so proud of what we have and where we come from, and people understand, some people do understand where this thing came from, and therefore you don't want to lose that, and I think that's part of it, people not wanting to lose the traditional element and make changes that can sort of capture everybody's attention, or more attention of a wider audience. So I think if we sort of look internally and come up with some creative ideas, just like how Panorama have sort of naturally gone through these phases, I think we can definitely increase the number of young people that are involved in Pan in general.
Is what?
One of those men that you are today, part of the man that you are is a rapso man.
Yeah.
How does rapso define, or what part of rapso defines your identity?
If a man wants to set false standards for you to follow, to hear what you say, blow away. Lancelot Lane, 1970. The first acknowledged rapso recording.
Man want to set false standards for you to follow, to hear what you say.
And a very, very important track for me and for many others when you really listen to it and tune into what he say. Don't believe what foreigners do is better than you, because that ain't true. It's a mental block that hard to unlock. It hard like a rock with it, you don't walk. You will live an illusion trying to be another man. So don't believe what foreigners do is better than you, because that ain't true. And he's speaking to a condition that I was introduced to the concept by Minshall, where I remember him mentioning self-contempt at one point. And it wasn't a phrase that I had encountered to that point. It gave me pause, it gave me a lot of reason for thinking. What are the forms of self-contempt that manifest, and what are the reasons for the self-contempt that we suffer from? And that's what Lancelot was addressing in that. And it speaks to a very pervasive attitude that many of us don't feel enough or lesser than, compare ourselves to others. We just talk a kind of way and whatnot, but these are our strengths, not our, and we have to embrace these things. The uniqueness of us, we have to embrace them. So people always talk about, what is rapso and if it's a sound and whatnot, and from earlier we settled on that it wasn't a sound, but it's a philosophy. It's the ability to express yourself powerfully in your word, in your rhythm. We have a strong word. When I say we, Trini, language, our language is strong. It's not wishy-washy, it's not bad English either. right? So if you get a command of that, and then you get a command of our rhythms, which are also very strong, which come straight from Africa, which comes straight from India, which comes straight from wherever, and then it come here and it mix up in a kind of way that none of us could have anticipated or predicted or predetermined. So it's just investing in that, investing in the power of we have a way of speaking that's very colorful, grandiloquent, flamboyant, hyperbolic, and then you find you set down in a rhythm where you just find a groove. So much of what we do is based on like Baptist chants or steel pan vibes, and that comes from a deep place. So you can't make those things up. So when you connect it, when you touch it into it, you actually tap into something deep and powerful.
Fill your head with all kind of story till the truth becomes a mystery. Now it's time to boom up history. Oh, I come to boom, boom, boom up history. Boom, 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 boom up history. Boom, boom, boom up history. Oh.
Rapso is the power of the word, in the rhythm of the word, and Lancelot laid the formula. Resistance went further to cement what that was. And even when we were starting off with Rapso, I thought, well, it have to sound like Resistance, or it have to echo those same themes. But no, it has to sound like you, and it have to echo your themes. You have to give voice to the issues that have concern to you and others around you, and not try to sort of ape or imitate. Of course, it starts with imitation. That's how you get influenced. But then you have to find your voice. That's crucial.
But the purpose was to bring the East Indian and the Africans in Trinidad together. So there was a combination of the two main rhythmic structures in Trinidad to create a sound that would be totally Trinidadian. Let us call it a Dougla rhythm, so to speak. And I took the rhythmic structure from the dolak, and I put it on the drum set. So then nobody could say, I'm doing Indian music. So I just take the accent, put it on the drum set, and then I get a name and I say, soca, S-O-K-A-H.
How are we defining soca?
Soca?
Yeah.
Soca is just a child of calypso.
What makes it different from calypso?
No, what makes it different from calypso is an evolution.
Sometimes it's very difficult to explain what exactly is it. Is it the beat? Is it a melody? Is it but it is that feeling and that knowledge of understanding what relates to you the most.
Every generation that comes forward, we want to do something that is of us, that we did not do before. So no matter where you are in the world, whatever culture you are, every generation, that is what is in their DNA to make that change. And soca became that. I mean, we had the soca, the raga soca. So every generation. Look where we're reaching out to Trinidad. But soca has survived because of the carnival scenario. And again, it is more palatable to maybe a global audience because soca is not a music form isolated. It became a music form that was influenced by other things and developed from calypso.
Our calypsos then were influenced by a lot of the soul music that was coming in. The disco era of the early 80s and so on influenced our soca a lot, to the point that people like Maestro and so on, Savage was the first disco 12-inch. Disco Daddy from Nelson.
Darling, I feel the disco. Jump in the wheels and let's go.
That whole change started in the 60s, from the end of the combo era. I mean, we could go back into the days of Casanovas and Rockefellers and Callian, which was Comets, and then Robin Imam Shah myself, Last Supper, then Pelham Goddard. I mean, there's so many influences that came. Shorty is still the godfather of soca because, in other words, he's the figurehead on which soca became marketable, not taking that away from him. But a genre is a movement, it's not an invention. I can't go home tomorrow and invent a genre of music. That's impossible, it's a movement. And soca was in the right place at the right time to catch the attention of us here as a people, you know, to satisfy the urge of knowing and of accomplishment that we have changed something.
Do you see the similarities between Chutney and calypso?
Definitely.
Comes to that same story you're telling there?
Yeah, you know, we are such a small nation, so it's inevitable for everything to just kind of go like this. It gets mixed in so easily, and it's so interesting that even when Ras Shorty would have created the beat, he said in that very famous interview that the dolak beat ding 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 was a very important element of what went into making the soca music. And correct. Yeah. You know, so that in itself tells you how important and how influential that mixture and that combination is.
What makes Chutney music unique? Like, what is the thing that makes it? I say, hey, yeah, that is Chutney. Is it the instruments?
The instruments definitely aren't unique because it's the same instruments that you hear in the Bollywood music, the same dolak, harmonium, dancehall, that sort of thing. I think what's unique is the way that we use it and the flavor and the spice. And the word chutney itself isn't just a genre of music, it's actually a sauce. Like spon polori and alupai and that kind of thing. And for those of you who might be familiar, chutney itself is something that is very flavorful, but at the same time is very spicy. And that in essence represents what chutney music is. It's a spicy kind of music that makes you feel to get up and shake your waist and dance and, you know, enjoy the dolak and the harmonium. And it's always good vibes. It's always been a storytelling genre. It always tells you stories of what was happening at that point in time because it came from something that was called local singing or even ground singing as it was called back in those days. And that was done by the indentured laborers who were telling these stories of how their day was, of when they went into the fields and they cut the cane and they came back home and they take their drink and they smoked their chillum and they sang songs about it. So it was really the evolution of that into the modern lyrics that really makes what we call today chutney soca.
Now stand tall, and all of this a program body won't fall. Now you know saying to ain't out by the international. Hear me now.
Kiskili Caravan. I saw a clip recently with, I don't remember, Granty, I think it was Granty performing. And it was you and Shell Shock on stage. You all both seem to be DJing at some point in time. Tell me about your role in Kiskili Caravan.
Well, at the time that Kiskili came up, there was a kind of, I don't know what the word to use, but there was kind of like a revolution happening in Trinidad culturally, musically. And I thought it was a critical and important part, and I credit Robert Amar for taking such a huge risk in terms of producing a lot of these young people who never had an opportunity. And part of that revolution, and I will show you how I was part of that revolution. At that time, there were 2 FM stations alone, and then the media was expanding to many others. And at that time, call it the youth format, was born in radio, which I was very much a part of. And at the same time, Kiskili Caravan is happening, where Amar is giving a lot of young artists opportunities to record, because everybody said, boy, at that time, you know, you're either Kitchener or Sparrow or you're David and the established guys, you know. But now, Edu Rankin, General Grant, this Trini could flow, which is Omari and Akinde and Home Front. That to me was probably one of the most significant things to happen that shaped this generation, because out of that, and all of the producers and the artists that came out of that, everybody now, you know, the vine started to get long now, and the 3 sons, the 1Gs, Maximus MX Prime, really came when that started to boil, and everybody wanted to be like Grant and want to be like Akinde and Omari.
You're rapping, you're trying to sound like an American, you're doing dance, or you're trying to sound like a Jamaican. But the essence of it is if you check every space, right, in the diaspora, every urban space, it throws up some kind of music that is more chant than singing, right? In America is hip hop, in Jamaica is dancehall, in Trinidad is rapso. And so that energy says something. It says something to the chanting and the call and response and thing. There's a power in that. And so for me, growing up, my foundation was music. My house was filled with calypso and all different kind of music, but all of them was on equal footing. Be yourself, song like yourself, right? And the very idea, the very first track we did was This Trini Could Flow, was a declaration of that.
So listen to the rap, so with the rough and rugged sound. Did you know? This Trini could flow. Did you know? This Trini could damn well flow.
Even though we may be influenced by dancehall of the 90s, when you break it down, it's no different to what Kitchener was being influenced when he did 12 bar Joan. It just, in his case, was big band. In the 90s case, it may have been a dancehall influence or hip hop influence, because some of Akinde and Omari has some hip hop influence. But when you really break it down, that thing that is Trinidadian is come up through the center of the being and explode and shed light to the music evolving.
That is why this whole Trinidad movement has come about, where now we identified using another cultural form and our interpretation of it.
One thing me I pray, get my money and build my dreams. Rep for my city and fix my scheme. System matter, so they set it. So you have to get up and I get it, get a youth, them a dream.
Then now we come back around and we have Trinidad. Is it still the same? You still feel that same feeling that there's that Trininess that comes to the center of it?
Well, in front the bar is called Trini. The thing about it is, you feel, oh, this is dancehall in Jamaica. When you go and ask a Jamaican, that is obviously Trini.
What do you think makes it? What makes it obviously Trini? That thing. We talk about DNA. Like, what is that thing that makes it obviously Trini?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew, but I just know.
And we no roll marijuana and no quarter leaf. Nah sell my soul, not a money, not the world that a boy coulda offer me. One thing me I pray, get my money and build my dreams. Rep for my city and fix my scheme. System matter, so
I mean, dancehall is dancehall, you know. At the end of the day, rap is rap, soca is soca. What happened is that, to me, we just put our own swing to it and our own twang to it. We cannot sound 100% like a Jamaican 100% of the time, even though that dancehall music would have basically come from Jamaica, you know. If a Jamaican with a Jamaican twang does a soca, we might like it and it will sell off in Trinidad the same way. It just mightn't have the same twang. You know what I mean? That same way that the lingo is kind of come across, and I guess maybe it was fresh at the point in time, because music is an ever-changing and an evolving thing. So at the point in time, the evolution that we brought to dancehall at the point in time would have been refreshing. It would have been something that you never really hear before, even though it's dancehall, it didn't sound the same. You could tell it's Chinese doing it.
Maraval, make some boy them know say we gonna far. Okay. So if a war them want, we ready like Freddy Vigo Shelley.
And yeah, I like Trinidad, the vibes of it, the energy of it. But then when I look at Trinidad, I'm like, all right, Trinidad is like our gangster rap. I think things like gangster rap or Trinidad come out of a neglected part of the society that has no choice now but to almost voice what they're going through, that everybody wants to turn a blind eye towards.
I believe that what's happening right now is that everybody just trying to make an impact. And at the point in time, the public embrace the badness music to the point where I would have been in studio for over a decade. But in a period of time, people were coming just to do any genre of music. And then 5 years after that, every youth was coming in the studio to do the badness because that is what was being accepted and was being, right? And then we have a lot of ghetto going on in the whole of the country. No matter where you're from, it have a lot of crime and corruption and these things, and it's relatable topics that people are speaking about. So at the end of the day, man, you say something positive, it will have a positive
effect. You say something negative, I don't know if they understand that it will have a negative effect as well. So I guess that they had to understand a better balance, because nobody is perfect, no human is perfect, and at the end of the day, music to a lot of the artists that are alive and has passed, rest in peace, was just an escape, you know, and perception. You could make it go a different direction, but at the end of the day, it's the message that you put out. I have a lot of gunman music. Come on, I come home and express myself every single day. I have my studio behind me. What I choose to release to the public is what they would get a picture and an image of me. So if I keep painting that picture, if every brush stroke is a brush stroke of a certain, then they would look at the picture and they would get the picture that I've been painting.
You know, the current music is what it is. It may not be the most positive expression, but it definitely is coming from a powerful place, and it speaks to the social conditions on the ground in certain areas. And if we ignore it, it's at our own peril. My thing is that, you know, I try to encourage as much of a positive expression as I possibly can, because to echo Bob Marley, if you wake up and you quarrel every day, you're saying prayers to the devil. So I think it's imperative that we, as artists, use our voice, use our platform in a positive way. And that's why we take the example of Lancelot and Resistance. There are many ways you could go. I mean, you have to know you, and you have to be true to you.
How can you as an artist use your music to help shape our cultural identity?
Man, come on, like, growing up through the years, I've seen a change within my craft and what I do, and definitely it has shown me that I have become an influencer in this day and time.
The reason why it has become actually very important in that way is that it gives a voice to the people who otherwise may not have had a voice.
But nonetheless, going straight back, you still have to look at the man in the mirror, right? So where I can choose to release these music just to get me hype and get me fame and whatever, now I strategically place my music out there.
Just put good music outside there. Music is healing. And once you know how to use that, it could help heal anything in the country, man.
Music, the works that we see, visual artists, the theater, the films, all these things, it's examples and things where you can see yourself in something that is a human being's attempt at aesthetically beautifying reality.
Here's where shape me, here's what make me. Through the arts, through the carnival, through performance, I got the opportunity at 22 to go to England to share our cultural expression with school kids in workshops. And for me, while we were educating them, we were actually educating ourselves. We were learning about how powerful our forms were. And that changed my life, to be honest. You know, I saw a sense of possibility. And it really did challenge a lot of my self-contempt, or as Mia Motley calls it, my lack of cultural confidence, you know. And I would like to think that my cultural confidence is like right up there. And I good with that. And I try to encourage people around me to, you know, stand tall, walk proud, walk as a Trini.
That idea that hey, where you feel it is, you see me here, what, you know, that kind of way. There's a thing about seeing yourself on a screen, hearing yourself on the radio, hearing yourself is a kind of affirmation of you being. And so it is why it is important when people talk about local content, right? That is critical and important, not just because we're supposed to have local thing on the airways, but there's a thing that gives people pride about seeing and hearing themselves, telling their stories.
Cultural confidence is that accepting of who we are and what we do and knowing that it's okay, right? And if more young people were culturally confident, and that cultural confidence comes from the nationalistic sort of ideas that we have, whether it's pan, whether it's Indian classical music, whether it's soca, whether it's calypso, that cultural confidence gives us the confidence to move through this world that we're in a unique way, and it brings light to us, because who can be better than us? Who can be better at our culture than us? This is what we have that's unique to us. And if we have that cultural confidence, we can move through this world successfully.
I love Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago, I'm gonna play a local one for you. Give me that tune.
Our local music is our oral tradition, and it tells the story of who we were, who we are, and who we will be. Without it, we are like a tree with no roots. As we continue to celebrate 60 years of independence, let us continue to celebrate our musical heritage and build our cultural confidence. And this way, we can reaffirm our own cultural identity and contribute to the well-being of our society. Me and you, together we aspire, together we achieve.
This feature was powered by Digicel. Digicel, better together.